Tonight we're going to be working on your homework sheet that's entitled Percents. We're going to go through and solve a few problems together where we practice converting from percents to decimals, decimals to percents, fractions to decimals, and decimals to fractions, and fractions to percents. So we're going to take time and do a few examples together, and then I'll give you your assignment for tonight. I'd like to start with number 2. You'll notice that number 2 says 210%. First off, I'd like to remind you that the word percent can kind of be broken down almost into the word percents, almost like per 100. It's a great technique to remember that typically percent is done up to 100. When you go over 100, we start to look at numbers that are bigger than one whole. All right, so our percent here is 210%. We need to convert that percent to a decimal and to a fraction. This is actually pretty simple. I like to start with percents because I believe that it makes it easier to do the rest. The first thing I'm going to do is change it to a fraction. Like I just said, percent means per 100. So I'm going to take 210 and put it over 100. Now, most of you probably remember the rules. Whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. I can divide both the bottom and the top by 10 very easily. Done. Remember that when you multiply by a multiple of 10, you add a 0 to the end. So when you divide by a multiple of 10, in this case the actual number 10, we're going to divide by that 10. So now I need to simplify the fraction 21 over 10, or 21 tenths. Well, if you think about money, that's like having 21 dimes. That's over $1, just like this is over 10. If you divide, you can do that work. We know that we're going to go in 2 times and have 1/10 left over. From here, it's really easy to create the decimal. If you use Xavier's method, you know that there's 1 0, so I need 1 decimal place. And I'm going to go ahead and place my 1 in there. Now we know that we have a decimal of 2.1 and a fraction of 2 1/10. It is actually, in fact, a mixed number. Let's look at another one. This time I'd like to take one that's already a fraction and use that to turn it into a decimal and a percent. So let's go ahead and look at one. Ooh, let's do 1/3. Okay, 1/3 is one of those benchmark fractions. It is one that I really think kids should just memorize. However, we'll go ahead and work through it the old-fashioned way. To begin, I'm going to switch to a decimal first. The first thing I'm going to do when I switch to a decimal is set up my division problem. It's important to know which is the dividend, which goes in dividend, and which is the divisor, which stays out. Your bottom is your divisor, and your dividend is your 1, your numerator. I know right now I'm going to need to add some zeros because this is a fraction and it's not greater than 1 whole. 3 goes into 10 3 times. Oh, I already know that I am going to see a pattern. This is going to be one of those repeating decimals. Love these guys. And I'm going to notate it just like that. So I come over here and I put in my decimal. Done. Now I need to change that into a percent. Well, when you go from a decimal to a percent, we like to have at least 2 decimal places here. Since I know this is a repeating decimal, there are a couple ways you can notate it. I know that right here, if I continue my division problem, I am going to just get another 3. Some people would then take this and shift the decimal point over 2 points, like such, and write their decimal that way. That's acceptable. Or you can, in fact, instead of putting your 3 here and continuing your division problem, you can write your remainder as a fraction. So if I erase this, I say that I have 1 left over out of 3. And now I know that I actually have 33 1/3%. Either one is acceptable to me. All right, the last problem we're going to do together is we're going to look at one that starts from a decimal. Okay, so I'm going to start with number 7, and I'm going to write this decimal down. And I'm going to immediately switch it to a fraction. Right off the bat, I can see that my fraction is going to need 1, 2, 3 zeros in the denominator. So that makes me have 125 thousandths. Now, you can take time to simplify this fraction, which I suggest. And I'm going to divide both my numerator and my denominator by 25. Why 25? Because I know right off the bat that this, in fact, 25 goes into 125 5 times. Now, looking at this, I may have to do a little side math here. Nope. Oh, 25 goes in here four times. And it goes into 0 times. Important to keep our place value here correct. So I have 5 out of 40. I can still simplify that. If I divide both sides by 5, which I did a little mental math there, I get the fraction to be 1/8. Now the decimal to percent conversion is super easy. Hop my decimal 2 to the right, and I have 12.5%. If you wanted to, you could do it here and divide both of these by 10. If you divide 125 and 1,000 by 10, you're going to find that this is now 100, and this becomes 12.5. That also shows you our percent. All right, I hope you've enjoyed our review, some practice together. Tonight, for the rest of your homework, I want you to pick 5 problems you'd like to work on. Just 5. Have a great night.